Okay, so this is one of the most incredible stories about education I have ever heard. Picture this. It's the 1980s in Japan. Computers are this brand new, intimidating thing, and a group of kindergarten teachers are trying to figure out how to introduce them to 5-year-olds. Their solution? Well, it wasn't some fancy new curriculum. Nope, they invented a teacher from outer space. This is the amazing true story of Pipi, the alien who taught kindergartners how to code.
So the whole thing really kicked off with this one big question. A question, by the way, that teachers are still asking today. Think about it. When you give a kid a new shiny toy or a new app, how do you get them to really play with it and figure it out for themselves? How do you spark that genuine curiosity instead of them just looking back at you and asking, okay, what do I do now?
And the answer they landed on was, well, it was just brilliant. Totally out there, but brilliant. They decided the teacher couldn't be a human at all. It had to come from another planet. And here he is. This is Pipi, the little alien who is about to become the star of this amazing educational experiment.
Okay, so to really appreciate just how clever this whole Pipi thing was, we first have to get into the weeds of the actual problem these teachers were trying to solve. They had this specific fear of what they called a dependency loop. And you know exactly what this is, right? A kid tries something new, it works, and they immediately turn to the adult in the room and go, "Cool, now what?" The teacher gives the next step and the kid does it. And that cycle just repeats. That spark of genuine figure-it-out-for-yourself discovery, it just fizzles out.
So how do you break that loop? Well, their solution was a massive creative jump. They realized the only way to do it was if the teacher wasn't a human adult at all.
And this whole idea was built on a really smart understanding of how little kids' brains work. See, at that age, the wall between what's real and what's imaginary is, well, it's pretty thin, almost non-existent. So if you tell a 5-year-old you met an alien, it's not just a fun story. It can feel like a real, actual memory. And the entire Pipi project leaned heavily into that beautiful, blurry line.
This led them to a really simple but powerful premise. If Pipi the alien is the teacher, then suddenly the human teachers in the room aren't the experts anymore. They're on the same level as the kids. They get to be fellow students, just as clueless and curious about what this alien was going to teach them next. And they didn't just, show up one day and say, "Hey kids, meet Pipi." Oh no, they orchestrated this whole thing like a movie. They started by setting the stage. It began with a class trip to a local planetarium, and the teacher secretly pulled the guide aside and said, "Hey, at the end of your talk, could you just plant a little seed? Just say something like, with all those billions of stars out there, isn't it possible someone or something is looking back at us?"
All right, now for the main event, first contact. The teachers went all in to make Pipi's arrival something these kids would never forget.
So get this. It's just a normal, sunny day in May. The kids are playing inside. And then all of a sudden, this totally bizarre, enormous sound, like a crazy mix of whooshes and beeps from a synthesizer, ending with a huge thud, echoes through the entire kindergarten. It sounds like something big just crash-landed right outside. And here's the best part. It wasn't just the kids who jumped. The teachers, playing their parts to perfection, acted totally shocked and worried. Everybody, kids and teachers, rushes outside onto the playground, a mix of scared and excited, looking all over the place, trying to find the source of that crazy noise. And then they find it. A kid climbing up a little hill on the playground yells out, "Down below, there's this weird, perfectly circular, scorched hole in the ground." I mean, it looked totally authentic. A technician had actually snuck in while the kids were inside, dug the hole, and used a gas burner to char the edges. It looked like a real-deal crash site. So the kids all crowd around it, the ground is still warm, and sitting right there in the middle of this little crater is a package wrapped in shiny aluminum foil. So they open it up, and inside there's a cassette tape, a floppy disk, and a little piece of paper with some kind of cryptic note on it. Pipi had left them a puzzle. And this is where the real test begins. This is Pipi's first puzzle. Because, you see, the alien didn't just drop off a game they could instantly play. It left a challenge that the kids had to figure out completely by themselves. Okay, so first things first, they pop the cassette tape in, and out comes this high-pitched, kind of robotic but friendly voice, which was really just one of the teachers speaking through some effects. The voice says his name is Pipi. He's from a star way out by Orihime, and that he loves watching them play. He says he's left them a gift on a computer disk, but his energy is low and he has to go back to space. The stage is perfectly set. So they're super excited, right? They run over to the computer, put the floppy disk in, and absolutely nothing happens. Just a blank screen. They're trying everything, pushing buttons, but it's just not working. And then one of the kids remembers that little slip of paper they found in the foil. They pull it out, and all it has on it are two letters, S, P, and then this weird bent arrow symbol.
Now, this is my favorite part. This is how they figured it out. Remember, these are Japanese kids. They don't know the English alphabet. S and P mean nothing to them, but they recognize the Japanese characters that were also printed on those keys. The S key had a to character, and the P key had a sei character. And that bent arrow? Well, to them, it looked exactly like a playground slide, which in Japanese is a subaridai. So the code wasn't SP return, it was to sei subaridai, push slide. And it's just brilliant. One group of kids cracks the code, they type it in, and bam! It works! The screen lights up with a picture of stars and the moon. You can just imagine the cheer that went up in that room. It was like a wildfire of excitement as they ran around telling everyone else how to do it. They had solved Pipi's puzzle, all by themselves.
But that first big win was really just the beginning. This is where we get to the real heart of the whole experiment, how Pipi actually taught them things, all through play.
You see, the software Pipi sent wasn't random. The creators behind the scenes had a very clear set of rules for designing it. First, it had to relate to the kids' everyday lives. The stuff on the screen had to be things they'd recognize immediately. The controls needed to be super simple and stay the same from game to game. But the absolute #1 rule, it had to be solvable without a grown-up stepping in to explain anything.
So that first program they unlocked was a pretty simple coloring book game. Once they got the hang of that, a new disc from Pipi would magically appear. Each new game was a little bit more of a challenge, but the basic controls never changed. So it was this really gentle learning curve, building their confidence one step at a time. And the pictures were always things they knew, like a rocket ship that looked just like the one they played on every single day.
So at the end of the day, what's the big takeaway here? After this whole elaborate, amazing project, what did these kids actually learn from an imaginary alien? I think this quote from one of the project's creators just says it all. Because the teacher wasn't the person with all the answers anymore, the kids had no choice but to rely on themselves and, more importantly, on each other. What it created was this amazing environment of teamwork, communication, and real honest-to-goodness problem solving.
And that really makes you think, doesn't it? Especially today. I mean, we are drowning in educational apps and technology, and almost all of it is designed to hold a kid's hand, to guide them, to correct them instantly. The story of Pipi is this incredible reminder from the past that maybe the best learning happens when we adults just get out of the way, when we give kids a really interesting problem and then just trust them to solve it together. It makes you wonder, what could happen if we just trusted their curiosity a little more?